Always a risky proposition to spin off a popular show, but this one comes to us from one of the most popular shows in the last 20, 25 years, certainly one of the most streamed shows of all time, The Office. This time we are set at a newspaper instead of a paper company, but we even have a familiar face in Oscar reprising his role from The Office. Let's talk about Peacock's The Paper. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my TV review for The Paper. All 10 episodes of Season 1 are streaming now on Peacock, and we have Season 2 on the way. Even before Season 1 premiered, Peacock greenlit a second season. So that is encouraging, although I must say I don't think there are any Peacock comedies that have stuck around more than 2 seasons. We had a couple that were like taken by other streamers, like Netflix took over Girls 5 Eva and did a 3rd season of that. But I don't know. Maybe this one will break the trend because it is obviously giving Peacock some love with a 2nd season already before the first one arrived. But anyway, we'll get into this in a second here. First, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a Dan Reviews It subscriber already, thank you so much for that. I love it when you guys return to check out my stuff. If you are not, though, please consider subscribing and check that notification bell down below there, too. That will, help you find all my videos. And, of course, you could like this video, comment below. That stuff helps the channel out as well. All right, so we've got a lot of people from The Office, both behind the camera and a couple in front of it. I mentioned Oscar Nunez, who reprises his role as Oscar Martinez here. He is a mainstay, and we have it as a little cameo in the first scene of the first episode, Bob Vance, who reprises his role from Robert R. Schaefer. He plays Bob Vance from The Office days. Basically, the premise of this involves the same documentary film crew that we saw in The Office. And as we got into later seasons of The Office, they were actually interacting with the film crew a little bit. I don't think we ever saw them. Maybe there was one scene where we saw one guy from that documentary crew. I feel like there was something with Pam. Anyway, you can tell me in the comments because I'm not remembering. But in any event, it's theoretically the same film crew now, wanting to check out what Dunder Mifflin has been up to 10 years later or whatever, and they arrive to the office, and Bob Vance greets them and says, oh yeah, they're not here anymore, Dunder Mifflin closed, blah blah blah. Of course, he's still married to Phyllis, so he talks about her, and he mentions, oh yeah, I still talk to Stanley a little bit, and Kevin, and oh yeah, Oscar's at this other company. So they sort of go through the records and see that the new company that sort of bought out that space or whatever is based in Ohio, at the Toledo Truth Teller, which is a newspaper, but then it also has a toilet paper concern. So it's, sort of paper and paper. So we're still in the world of paper, and Oscar is the accountant now for the Toledo Truth Teller and the toilet paper company. So the documentary crew goes over there and starts filming, and it just happens to be the first day or whatever that Ned Sampson, the new editor-in-chief of the Toledo Truth Teller, arrives. And he's played by Domhnall Gleeson. You've seen him in, dozens of things over the years, I'm sure, so many movies and TV shows. So he's kind of the star here, the boss, the Michael Scott, but certainly not in the same way. We'll get into that in a little bit. You also have, so nobody else in the cast really is somebody I recognize. I'm sure they've all done some things, but you have Sabrina Impacatore as Esmeralda Grant, who is the managing editor of the Truth Teller, and she runs the online component as well. She and Ned clash right away. This is sort of her baby. She wants to, have the control, and he does not, have the same ideas as her on how to run it. You have Chelsea Frey as one of the paper workers, who is a former Army soldier who wrote for Stars and Stripes, and she is excited to get back to reporting under the tutelage of Ned. You have Melvin Gregg, who is an advertising sales rep. Alex Edelman, who plays this socially awkward accountant, who is part of Oscar's team. You have Ramona Young, Tim Key, Jimmy Sola Ikumelo, who's an accountant there as well on Oscar's team. So there's a whole host of all new people that we've not met before, other than Domhnall Gleeson. I don't know any of these people, but the people behind the scenes, very familiar for The Office fans. So this was created, this iteration, by Greg Daniels and Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was one of the people on, he was one of the writers for a long time on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, so he certainly shares a sense of humor with me. I love Conan. And he also wrote for many years and produced on Nathan for You for HBO. But his direct Office connection is he is married to Ellie Kemper, who played for many years on The Office. And you also have in the executive producer line people like Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, who created the original show, and then Howard Klein and Ben Silverman, who worked a lot on the American Office. But you also have Ken Kwapis directing an episode here. He was instrumental in bringing The Office from the UK to the US. And you also have Paul Lieberstein, who played Toby on The Office. He directs an episode of season 1 of the paper and writes an episode of season 1. In fact, I think he wrote the season finale of the paper for season 1. So this has Office DNA all over it, and certainly the way it is shot and produced is very reminiscent of The Office. And in fact, Oscar, as a character, sees the documentary crew come in and he says, no, I'm not doing this again. I'm not a part of this. I don't consent. And they flash something on the screen saying, well, actually the agreement that Oscar signed at the beginning of The Office, does not preclude him from this. We will be including him. So that's how they sort of get around that. But other than that, how does this differentiate itself from The Office, right? We've heard a lot now about these similarities. Well, first of all, Domhnall Gleeson's Ned is a very, very different manager than Michael Scott. Michael Scott was nice, sort of, but bumbling and really not cut out to be a manager. Terrible at his job. But we learn over the seasons, he has a good heart and this and that. But Ned is a little bit different. Ned is a go-getter, and he comes in with a barrel full of ideas. Now, of course, in The Office, it wasn't like it was Michael Scott's first day. So here we're seeing Ned kind of build the Toledo Truth Teller from the ground up in a world of, failing newspapers. The Toledo Truth Teller had sort of been almost a tax write-off for this company, whose main issue was their toilet paper arm. And so he is trying to figure out a way to get real news back into this paper. And I think it's a clever way to go, because I feel like we've already done a few things like this. The Office was definitely, the biggest in the early days to do that mockumentary, form, but we have Abbott Elementary doing it now, and Modern Family utilized it, et cetera, et cetera. So Parks and Rec, of course, which was also sort of a spinoff from The Office, but not really. And I think something that is important to remember as we go forward with this review is, both The Office and Parks and Recreation did not start out strong. They only got 6 episodes per season for their first run. The Office obviously had inspiration from the Ricky Gervais Office and even remade a couple of the episodes, almost line for line. But Parks and Rec, oof, that is a bad first 6 episodes. Luckily they shifted gears a little bit during the summer break, and season 2 was a bit better. So this one stumbles, I think, a little bit out of the gate as well, because I feel like we need to get to know these characters more than just these 10 episodes are allowing us to. Look, back in the day, of course, sitcoms had 22, 24 episode runs. In the days of streaming, that just doesn't exist anymore. But I think even something like 16 episodes would flesh these characters out a little bit more, because the problem with sitcoms being so short is you really need to get the audience on board with the characters while having clever writing, clever situations, all that kind of stuff. What this show decided to do because of that, I guess, is to sort of just hit the ground running and have the craziness sort of come out right away. In The Office, you really kind of had to build to that. And, some of the crazier side characters and whatever. Here, they're like, look, we have 10 episodes to get in and get out for this season. Let's just present these characters in their full form right away. And that can, I think, help or hurt a show. Here, I actually think it was the way to go. I think the first couple of episodes are still a bit rocky, but once you hit episode 3, it's a little bit of a caper episode. Ned and I want to get her name right, Mare, go off to do this investigative journalism on mattress prices around town, and it ends up being very, very funny. And at the same time, then you have some of the other members, including Oscar, split off doing this other plot that Ned would certainly want to be there for, but he is trying, or he's being sort of sabotaged by Esmeralda. And so there are two distinct, an A story and a B story, or maybe even two A's. But it has already split the group up and letting us see them shine, in different ways. So, the first couple episodes, if you're not feeling it, trust me, wait till that third episode, because that's where I think the show really kicks into gear, which is reminiscent of how, The Office and Parks and Rec started. Those first few episodes were shaky at best, and then it really, really found its stride. So, look, we've obviously been there, done that with this mockumentary style, but I like the idea that it's the same crew coming back. I like the little nods to The Office. At one point, there's a new sort of puzzle in the Toledo Truth Teller, and we see Oscar calling Stanley. We don't see the other end of that conversation. We don't see Stanley, but calling Stanley, who always loved his crossword puzzles and everything, talking to him about, hey, did you, see the new puzzle in the Truth Teller? So I thought that was a nice little touch. Let's not lean too much into the Office characters. We have Oscar. I think that's enough, but it was nice to get us in the door with a Bob Vance and everything. And I really like the handling of the Domhnall Gleeson character, Ned. He is definitely different from Michael Scott. The biggest sticking point for me so far is this Esmeralda Grand. She is a saboteur. She is an unlikable character, and she's played all right, but I think she is poorly written. So I believe they need to, figure out a way to better finesse that character in future seasons, because so far, like Dwight was, sort of annoying, but he was, a kiss ass. So it's like he had this side where, he was kissing Michael Scott's butt and trying to, always throw somebody under the bus, but not ever Michael, right? Here we have Esmeralda really, really trying to get one over on Ned, maybe even get Ned fired, and all of this stuff. It is unlikable. I get it. We need foils. But I'm not sure that this was the way. Her character is by far the worst so far of this series. But look, give the paper a try, I would say. I don't think it is giving us the best that we will see yet from this show. I think season 2 is going to build upon what we've had so far here. But I really, really wish these comedies, and I've said this before, but I've said it in this video before, but I really wish these comedies on streamers would get 16, 18, 20 episodes, to really, find a home for these characters. I mean, these are 18, 19, 20-minute episodes. There's no reason, not to double up that order and really let us live with these characters. It really helps with a sitcom. But all right, I will leave The Paper season 1 with a B+. I think we are off to a strong start after a couple of wobbly episodes at the beginning. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It. I will see you next time. Bye.